Would we know if society was about to collapse? That is the question. Well, it certainly seems like it's happening. Now, MIT predicted society would collapse by 2040. And new data tells us, well, how we're doing. Now, scientists in the 1970s at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology created a method to determine when the fall of society would take place. And now that method indicated that the fall would be at some point near the middle of the 21st century, around 2040. And so far, their predictions have been on track, according to a new analysis. In 1972, a team of researchers studied the risks of a doomsday scenario, examining limited availability of natural resources and the rising costs that would subvert the expectations of economic growth in the second decade of the 21st century. This is chilling because it's almost like they knew what was happening right now. Now, using a system of dynamic models that was published by the Club of Rome, can you believe this? They invented global warming, that entire narrative. Now, the Club of Rome is a Swiss-based global think tank that includes current and former heads of state, United Nations bureaucrats, government officials, diplomats, pseudoscientists, or paid-off scientists, economists, and business leaders. The scientists were able to identify the upcoming limits of growth to forecast the potential global, ecological, and economic collapse coming up in the middle of the 21st century. Absolutely mind-blowing. Now, the Earth, according to Limits to Growth, has been terraformed beyond repair by greenhouse gases from fossil fuels. That's the dumbest statement ever. The Earth has actually been greened because of increased CO2, and that is confirmed by NASA. But according to this study, the next generation will have to endure the heavy legacy, a scarcity of mineral resources, and a planet characterized by radioactive and heavy metal pollution. Now, this is completely true. Because of the green movement, we are literally going to mine the Earth into oblivion and toxify it with heavy metals from spent batteries, solar panels, and all the garbage that's supposed to save the planet. Now, the 1970s study was considered controversial and sparked debate, with some pundits misrepresenting the findings and methods. But here we're going to get to the bottom of it, because I think that the powers that be know about this study and they're using it as a blueprint, and they're actually accelerating it in some ways. Now, however, Gaia Harrington, the Director, Advisory, Internal Audit, and Enterprise Risk at major accounting firm KPMG, updated the Limits to Growth. And here you're looking at that supporting information here from Harrington in 2020. And we're going to supply you all these links below so you can do your own homework. And the updated models in the published findings in the Yale Journal of Ecology in November 2020 were very damning, because in Harrington's estimates, the world's population, well, let's just go down to some of these graphs. The world's population, industrial output, food and resources will rapidly decline based on all of the findings. And that's kind of scary, because this is just using regular economics. So there is that. Now, according to Harrington, the 2100s will be comparable to the early 1900s. However, Harrington is treating her research as a personal project, as a precaution to see how well the MIT model holds up. Now, Harrington's study concluded that society has about another decade to change course and avoid collapse, and this is by investing in sustainable technologies and equitable human development. Now, this is all propaganda, folks. Equitable human development will not save the Earth. And the so-called sustainable green technologies that we're using now is literally driving the Earth into a toxic heap. Population has already peaked. Birth rates are expected to hit an all-time low in 2030. Death rates will hit an all-time high by 2060. That's after the collapse. For decades, people die, famines, hunger. Peak food is over. And the industrial output per capita peaked back in 2015 and will be in a steep decline for the rest of your lives. This is very scary information. Should we believe it? Well, we can see the World Economic Forum and the UN pushing more agendas. A paper just came out about the experimental medical procedure that everyone has been given over the last several years. And it has a direct effect on female reproductive systems. It does them great harm. And that's simply going to accelerate the birth rate declines. We've already banned fossil fuels, so non-renewable resources remaining is going to be zero in a decade. Forced on purpose by policy, not by the actual scarcity. And this is going to cause the collapse of society quite rapidly, before 2040. If we can't use fossil fuels by 2035, then most people will starve and freeze to death by then. Not a single reporter or journalist has integrity enough to say the words that I'm saying now, and I don't know why. It's as if the whole world has become lazy, complacent, teetotalers, propagandists, or they just want their paycheck because they know if they don't toe the line, they'll be blackballed. It's a scary world we live in. Very scary. And this is the greatest estimation of what's going on. And all of these meet right here. All right? This is 2000. This is 2100. This is 2050. Right here is 2035. 2035 is a quagmire of conceptual complexities. But in my opinion, before then, we're going to see some grid down scenarios that's going to prevent a lot of the manipulation and control. Our only hope is for the sun to collapse society before those with vested interest do it beforehand. And that is my hope. And that is a boom. Where is it? To knowledge. Proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. I hope you got something out of the video. The 1974 MIT study was then picked up by the Club of Rome, who wrote the book on the limits to growth. And these people have been controlling the narrative for decades, with the World Economic Forum and the UN accelerating the process. Now, why would a group of elites want to end the empire? Well, it's to start a new one, and that's called the Global Reset, or the Great Reset. I hope we made this quite clear for you tonight. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Share this with like-minded people and be safe. We love you, and that's a boom. If our channel doesn't exist in the morning, you know why.